One day, I asked my mother-in-law, Karen, to heat the bathhouse on a Friday night so that I could come home from work, take my wife, Emily, and go straight to the bathhouse and have a drink. Karen is a single woman. Her husband died in an accident years ago, and she has lived alone ever since. She lived outside of town, in a cozy little house surrounded by trees, so it was always a pleasure for me to visit her and enjoy the quiet atmosphere. I was looking forward to the evening, but then I got a call from my wife saying she had been called into work. She works in a hospital and needed to fill in for her friend urgently. I was upset, but decided to go to Karen's bathhouse by myself. When I arrived, I told Karen that her daughter wouldn't be there, that she had been called into work. Karen nodded understandingly and immediately sent me to the bathhouse, saying she would join me later when she had set the table. I made my way to the bathhouse alone. The bathhouse was warm and cozy, the air thick with heat. I undressed, took a dip under the shower, and stepped into the steam room. The warmth enveloped me, and I felt my muscles begin to relax. I sat there for about 10 minutes, enjoying the soothing warmth, when I heard a noise. Then Karen's voice called out to me from outside the steam room. "How's the heat, son-in-law?" she asked. I replied, "It's fine. Come join me." A couple minutes later, Karen entered the steam room. She looked good, and I couldn't help but notice it. Usually, my wife was around, so I didn't pay much attention to Karen, but today, she took me by surprise. She was wearing only a towel and a swimsuit. Her hair was styled loosely, and her skin was glowing from the heat. She took a seat next to me and said, "Don't be shy with me, son-in-law. I've seen all sorts of men in my life," and she laughed with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. I almost wanted to hide from embarrassment, feeling my face blush. There was almost no air left. The heat mixed with my nerves, so I got up and went into the anteroom to catch my breath. In the anteroom, I threw on my robe and sat down at the table Karen had set. She followed me, her skin glistening from the steam, and put on her robe as well. She sat down next to me, her presence warm and soothing, and poured us juice. I couldn't help but notice her figure. She looked stunning as a young woman. Living without a man must have meant she took good care of herself, and it showed. Her body was toned, and her posture was confident. Karen poured us another shot, meeting my eyes, and invited me to come back to the steam room with her. How could I refuse? We threw off our robes and returned to the steam room. Karen immediately lay down on the bench, her body stretched out gracefully, and asked me to tap her with a birch broom. I took the broom from the basin and began tapping with it, trying to keep my mind on the job at hand. From time to time, she praised me, telling me in a soft and grateful voice how good I felt. The heat was intense, or maybe it was just Karen making me anxious. My heart was pounding, my thoughts were racing, and everything around me started to blur. Then she looked at me, her eyes fixed on mine, and said, "What are you waiting for, you fool? Come on, take action." Without thinking, I started to act. My body moved instinctively. The tension between us fell like a taut string. My legs shook afterward, and I collapsed onto the bench in exhaustion. Karen stood up, her expression soft, and kissed my forehead. "Thank you, son-in-law. You're the best," she said, her voice filled with warmth and gratitude. She left the steam room, and I stayed there, trying to come to my senses and make sense of what had just happened. My mind was racing with conflicting emotions, but there was also a strange sense of satisfaction. After a while, coming to my senses, I went out to the anteroom where Karen was waiting for me, and we continued our little celebration. We laughed and talked. The atmosphere between us was now charged with a different kind of energy. We had a good time, and eventually it was time to go to bed. We, of course, continued what we had started in the bathhouse. The night seemed endless, and we were fully rested. Karen and I now shared a secret that made us both feel very good. A bond has developed between us that wasn't there before, a sense of understanding and connection that goes beyond words. It makes our communication smoother and more comfortable, and whenever I visit her, we tacitly acknowledge what we have in common. It adds a thrill to our encounters, a secret excitement that we both enjoy. And somehow it feels like everything is exactly as it should be.